what happens when you do that is you become aware of the beautiful, the ripe goodness that is all around us, where the divine has been present and leading in the world. And that only happens when we look up and we realize this world, when we follow the teachings of Jesus, we actually move toward restoration. And by the way, when I say that, I'm not speaking of perfection, a static state of unchange, everything just perfect. No, we head toward the direction, the trajectory Jesus puts us on. And that's toward restoration, wholeness, healing, sotar, salvation. Now, today we're going to move into chapter 2 and a very special birth. And so I call this 40 Days, Arcs, and an Unexpected Conversation with a Childhood Bully. I love making titles. And so let's start with this. Moses. Many people throughout history, they've attributed to the authorship of this book to Moses. Well, Moses is in there. He must have wrote it. Most modern scholarship, however, says Moses was probably not the author. Nowhere in the book of Exodus do you find the actual authorship attributed to him. You'll find a couple places here and there where it says God asked him to write a lyric and share it with his people. Or he wrote, God said, inscribe something on this altar. But at the very end of Exodus, you find a very detailed description of Moses' death. And I don't know how many of you are going to be able to do that at your death. Write a detailed description of the funeral. More than likely, Moses is not the author. Now, many people have said this to me, and they've said, okay, what do we do in the Bible when it doesn't behave? What do we do when archaeology and science sometimes makes us have to scratch our head and say, wait, but it says this. What do we do with that? See, for historians, archaeologists, right now, they're kind of at odds with some of the stories in the Exodus. Let me share with you a couple things. And I get this a lot, especially on podcasts and blogs. The pyramids. You guys have all seen The Prince of Egypt, right? Come on. I know on Sabbath you were like, I can't watch movies. Wait, I can watch this? It's a Jesus movie. I can watch this one. And so in the movie, and most portrayed, you'll see over and over again, the Israelites were slaves and they were building what? The pyramids. This is a very common idea shared among Jews as well as Christians. They're building the pyramids. In 1977, the Prime Minister of Israel, he went to the museum there in Cairo, in Egypt, and he gave this speech and he said, all of these pyramids, they were built by us. And surprisingly, the Egyptians didn't like that. Can you imagine? Because their story says they built the pyramids. And so there was a bit of frustration there. You didn't build these, we built those. We have history showing that we built these. When you start to look into history a little bit, you'll understand it took 900 years to build these pyramids. Egypt started building them around 2600 BC. It finished around 1750 BC. Israel's not really a nation until around 110 BC. So, the last pyramid that was built, there was a time span of 600 years before Israel even enters the picture. What do? Well, that disrupts things a little bit. Let me keep sharing. Here's the route from Egypt to Canaan. Now, this route, we've all read. How long did it take for the Israelites to travel from there to there? 40 years. Yeah, we know this. Now, when you actually take the measurements and you travel that, you know how long it will take to get there on foot? 11 days on foot. Interesting. There are others who've said, yes, there's 11 days, but Israel, there were larger empires there, and they couldn't actually go straight. They had to kind of go roundabout. And so archaeologists said, okay, well, let's measure that. And liberally, they've said maybe 2 months. And when you look at the story of Israel, they don't stop for 20 years in various places. They're tribal, they're nomadic, they're moving. Now, I'm really bad with directions, y'all. If I don't have Google or Waze, I will not get to my destination. And many of you ask me, because this is what we talk about in Southern California, we talk about traffic. It's weird. That's what most of our conversations are about. Hey, I'm so glad to see you. How'd you get here? Took the 10 to the 405 to the this to the that to the 55 to the 22. Oh, I took the da 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 da. And that's interesting to us. For the Israelites, you'd have to be really, really bad at directions. Not just 40 days, but 40 years. And so you can see where there's a little bit of a rub. And historians and archaeologists, they're frustrated because they say this could not have possibly been literal. And I get over and over again online, I'll have these people throw this in my face. And they'll say, just get rid of it. Why do you even use the Bible? It's not even real. It's not even, this couldn't have taken place. But let me show you something. There is beauty here. While the Bible was not written by the Israelites to be a historically perfect account of everything, that's not why they wrote it. They added these traditions and the stories to show meaning and purpose of where Israel was and what their identity is, where God has been moving. Watch this. 40. For us, 40 years is 40 years. For Israel, the number 40 meant something deeply profound. The number 40, when they read 40, they understood immediately 40 is a number which encompasses the idea of change in transition. Moses, how long was he up on Mount Sinai? 40 days. He brings what to his people? The law, the 10 Commandments, which change everything. It causes a transition. Watch this. If I'm ritually unclean, according to Jewish law, I have to sit in a tub that has the measurements of 40 measurements of water in the tub. How many times do you suppose I'm supposed to be dunked? 7 times. When I'm dunked 7 times in the 40 gallon or 40 measurement of water, I come up clean. How many days was Noah in the ark? 40. Do you see it? There's change, there's transition. Something big is taking place. And when it does, there's a huge change and a transition for Israel. An embryo, according to the Talmud, turns from an embryo to a fetus 40 days. Change, transition. Over and over and over again, the number 40. Google it. You'll find hundreds of other 40 connections. Really beautiful. And so understand, when you read the Exodus, it's a story about change and transition. It's about leaving the old behind and walking in the new. Following me? Armando, you're about to start walking in the new. Are you ready? Yeah. Caldwells, we wish you were not walking in the new. We love you. We're going to hold you here as long as possible. I told you I wasn't going to say anything up front, and I lied. I'm sorry. Exodus chapter 1. In order to understand your story, you have to go back and look at your past. Right? To understand where you've been, you have to have a past, and you have to understand it. So this is how they describe it in chapter 1, 6 through 10. They say this. Now Joseph and all of his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly faithful, and they multiplied greatly. They increased in numbers. They became so numerous that the land was filled with them, like bunnies. Then a new king whom Joseph meant nothing to came to power in Egypt. The new king does not know our story. The new king does not know our identity, doesn't know who we are. And so a people who thrive and are doing well, they are really threatening to those kind of powers. Do y'all hear me? Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever done too good at a job? Someone at work said, I think you would do great at this. And you start doing the TPS reports. But the problem is you're really good at it. And all of a sudden, because you're so good at that thing, because you thrive at everything you do, it sometimes has the potential to make some people a little uncomfortable. We use the word jealous. You ever do something a little too well? I remember when I started ministry, I had an individual, and they were well-meaning, but they said this to me. Tony, do well, but not too well. You can succeed, but don't succeed too much. Because you might threaten some people. And I remember hearing that thinking, is that wisdom? Hide your gifts, your passions underneath the ground there in order to keep other people happy? See, what happens when you do that, according to the scriptures, is that you go into slavery. And to be honest with you, there are a lot of us who've become cogs and wheels, haven't we? We stopped pushing to do the extra and we just decided we're just going to do this because it doesn't make any kind of mess. The world is filled with cogs and it's filled with them. It's filled with slaves, but this world doesn't need more slaves. Good slaves are easy to be found. What this world needs is people who will walk in the new reality. People who will step in and say, I will share my light fully. And yeah, it might be uncomfortable, but I'm sharing this beautiful life-sustaining, healing, restoration fully. You were made to share that kind of light. Don't hide it. One of my favorite songs, Hide It Under a Bushel. I feel like it's your childhood is screaming for you to yell that louder, and you just like, no. I want to try it again. Hide it under a bushel. No. Hide it under a bushel. No. That's a little bit better. Good. Let's forget that ever happened. For insecure empires, thriving is a terrifying thing. Oppressive powers will always seek to push those down who bring life and meaning to culture. And so when we move into chapter 2, here's what happens. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, I like that, fine, she hid him for 3 months. Now watch this. A Levite child, the Levite idea here is very important. If you're going to lead a group of people out, you need that priestly presence. And that's what they want to make the connection to. Moses is the next messianic presence. He's leading his people out. And here's the thing. A new reality, the new thing is always messy and it's always chaotic. And again, anyone that's ever been there when someone was giving birth, I know the movies make it seem like it's just so beautiful. It's like, oh, mommy, oh baby, I love you so much. You're so smart. You said, mommy, I love you. I want to be a rocket scientist. Oh. What happens is this. You did this to me. Blood, guts, everything. And there's uncertainty, and you're not sure, is this thing going to take or not? I just ruined birth for all of you, and you're welcome. But that's what happens with birth. The new reality is going to start, and it's not always easy. Here's the thing. Some of you, if you've talked to me, you've said, I keep trying this new thing. This blog is not taking off. This new job endeavor, I just can't seem to get off the ground. I'm selling this product and no one wants it. And you're more and more frustrated. But here is the beauty of the Exodus story. It says this. Anything worth doing is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to take off right away. It's just the reality. And so you do your best. You dig in your heels, blood, sweat, and tears. You give it your all. And what we're told is when you do that thing, when you put the time in, when you put the energy in, when you are faithful to the thing that you're passionate about, miraculous stuff begins to happen. It always does. We're told this. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it. When she could hide it no longer. I think that's interesting about truth. I think for us, many times, there's certain things we should probably be discussing as a group, but we don't always discuss it. We like to hide some things because we're a little bit nervous of what kind of change might occur. But here's the beautiful thing about truth, beautiful, restoring, healing truth. It doesn't stay hidden forever, does it? And it tends to pop out. And when you are willing to let it go and be free and speak it, beautiful things happen. We should be having bigger discussions than just women's ordination, folks. You think that's controversial? Come on. That's 20 years behind. Our conversations, the ones we should be having, should be a little more relevant. And the deeper, deeper truth is right there before our eyes. The child is placed in a basket. Watch this. A papyrus basket, tar and pitch. Does anyone having alarms going off saying, tar and pitch, that's familiar? Anybody? Here's what the word means. Tebah, ark. Only 2 places in Scripture do you see this word, tebah. It means an ark. So watch this interesting story of Noah. Noah feels impressed, called to lead his people through the chaotic waters. After moving through the chaotic waters, there will be a real new reality, life anew for the world, for his nation. And it starts in this ark with the pitch and the tar there. We're told God hovers over the waters. He's there, just like he was in the beginning of creation, hovering over the waters, the chaos. And so Moses and Noah are really telling a bigger story about Israel. In order for Israel to move into the new reality, they're going to be treading some really chaotic, uncertain waters. And it starts there. In order to walk into the new reality, you have to be willing to step onto the boat. The boat is terrifying, it's nerve-wracking, but that miracle will not take place until you're willing to step onto the boat. Turbulence is scary, chaos is scary, but a miracle is sure to follow. The ark, the vessel, what it does is it catapults us through the chaos. I'm going to do a new section in my podcast, and it's called Facing Your Bullies. And I've understood something about my own story, and I've shared some of it before. But I'm beginning to understand some of my insecurities and my frustrations, my fears, my anger. It's deeply rooted in some of these moments where I was bullied. It was my whole experience through school, over and over and over again. I remember walking the hallways in junior high. If I could make it on the bus without a moment with a bully, I would then hide in the hallway. I'd do my best. I'd keep my head down. I wouldn't look at anybody. I would just try to get through. I remember waiting in the hallway and every single morning, almost every single morning, that group of guys, almost the same group, they'd find me. And when they found me, they'd call me names and they'd push me. They'd antagonize me. They'd say, you're gay. You're a loser. You're weak. They'd push. Sometimes I'd get punched in the gut repeatedly, and then I'd have to go to class. And I realized that something about my story is I need to meet those people again. So I'm going to call some of these bullies that I remember. I'm going to have a conversation with them. Because I understand that my experience is my own. And I have certain things inside of my head certain realities that I think happened. But what I need to do is I need to share my story with them. And then I also need to in turn hear their story. What was happening in your life? What was going on? And when that happens, my hope is that I will experience restoration and so will they. And anyone listening might experience the same. So when I got to Michigan, I found my old yearbooks. And there's one individual, his name's Jason, and he's the first one that I think of when I think of the bullies. And I couldn't remember how to spell his stinking name. Not Jason, but his last name, which I won't repeat because I don't want you looking for him. You messed with our pastor, you're going down. Oh, it's so sweet of you. Or some of you are like, hey, can you call him again? You're a bad person. So I look up the last name, and there he is. I'm looking through the book, and I'm having all these memories come back, and I see his picture. And it stirs up a little bit of like, there he is. And I get on Facebook, because everyone in the world's on Facebook. And I type in his name, and you know what? 4 pictures show up, profiles. And the one that catches my attention, I look at him, I'm like, you are Jason, just, 80 pounds heavier. You're Jason. And so I see that, and I immediately hit add friend. And I message him, and I said, are you the same Jason that lived on 10 Mile Road and went to Rockford High School? And I wait. 2 minutes pass. Da-ding. I've got a new friend. So I start stalking. I go to his page and I look. The first thing I notice, he says, hey y'all, you're not going to see me for a good 3 months, heading to jail. And I thought, of course you are. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. So I'm wondering what happened. I wait for the message to respond. I get to the airport. We're about to leave to head back to Orange County. And there in the middle of the airport, I get a message that says this: sorry, man, not him. I'm like, but you have to be. You look like him. You're going to jail. It's just, I feel like it's got to be Jason. And then he added something interesting. He said, I used to be a pastor too. And so you know me. I'm going to ask questions because there's a story there. It's just on the surface. It needs to be dug in a little bit. So I said, what happened? He said, I used to be a pastor, and my wife and I, we did ministry in this large church. And then she took off with someone else. He said, my life changed from that moment. I decided I was going to mess my life up as best I could. So he went down this road of drug abuse. Every single drug he could use, he used, all in the hopes that he would just trash that life that he had. Got so bad that he ended up in prison, heading to prison. And then I asked the question, the Bob Bosant question, and Bob, I know you're watching right now. I said, what are you committed to? The landmark question. Where are you heading in all this? Where do you want to be? And I saw the ... ellipsis. I watched that for an hour. No response. I thought, wow, he's really writing a lot. Got on the plane, had to put it on airplane mode. I get back into Orange County. I take it off airplane mode. There's a message there. He says, I never really thought about it. No one's asked me. Next paragraph. I've been thinking about it here in my room. I think the reason I never ended it, he said, the reason I didn't take the extra pill that I knew would end things, the reason I didn't go the extra mile and do the thing that has sustained me, he said, was my son. My son, he said, through all of this, has loved me. My son's presence never left me. And I think that has been what's kept me alive the most. Now, when you read this story about the Exodus, there's something interesting that happens there at the end. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The word and the phrase here, it means this. Hebrew always has pictures. That's how you read the Hebrew. It's pictures. And here's what it looks like. It looks like this. You're hovering over the waters. Where have you heard that before? In the beginning, God, we're told, hovers over the waters. And he brings order to the chaos. His presence hovered over the waters with the ark. And there, for Moses, who is really the bigger picture of Israel, God's presence hovered over the chaos. So you are in the middle of something, because we all are. You're trying the new thing. It's not working. This path you're on is frustrating. It feels chaotic. You feel like the new thing is not going to work. You're beginning to feel a bit hopeless. You stepped into the new thing and it doesn't feel right. Here's what I want you to know. First off, it's normal. It's normal. It's going to take some time. It's going to take blood, sweat, and tears. But next, I want you to know that God's presence, love, community, it is hovering over your chaos right here, right now. Hold on to that. It's hovering over the chaos right here, right now. God has not left you. And when you go to this new thing, He will be there hovering over your chaos. And so when we realize and we become aware of God's presence in the chaos, the miraculous starts to happen. You go to text a bully and you go to confront them, and then you realize the bully's story isn't that far from your own. You're about to go to jail, and then you get a weird message from some guy wanting to confront his bully, and it changes everything. You're in the middle of that thing and you're feeling alone and frustrated. You are a mom and you're working 24 hours a day, it feels like, and you still have to make food for your kid. You're the single mom and you're also getting your degree. And it's hard. But the message is keep going. God's presence is right there. Won't leave you, will never forsake you. You're going to get through it. And when you get through it, you have a story to share. And so, you're loved. In the boat you're floating down, it will bring you into life more abundantly. Just hold on. So fight those tides. Earn those black eyes. And just keep fighting. God's presence is closer than you think.